Hey guys, how you doing today? Just getting off work here. I'm gonna be walking home, so I figure, hey, or walking to a friend's rather. It's gonna take me about 20-25 minutes, so what the heck, might as well do a video while I do that. Two kind of pieces of news that are floating around that I think are worth talking about and putting my 2 cents in. The first is the Harpers letter. This is a letter that got signed by a large array of individuals throughout the United States of ranging political ideologies, and it got published in Harper's Magazine, and this was sort of an initiative that was put forward by Harper's Magazine. And when I say a wide array of people, I mean wide array. Like Noam Chomsky has signed this, as has someone like David Frum, who is part of the reason we're in the Iraq War. So, and really what the ideology, or what the paper said, what this letter said, is very simply, we should be having discussions and open conversations about the political ideologies and political conversations. We shouldn't be trying to shut each other down, and we should be attempting to engage in conversation with one another and debate one another, and accept that it's okay to have disagreements with one another. And I respect this sort of position. Like, I think it should. Right now, there is sort of this idea that goes around that if you go onto Fox News, by even going onto Fox News, if you're considered on the left, that this somehow denigrates you. That if you're a person who is, who considers themselves, on the right, and you go onto what is considered a left-wing show, that this somehow diminishes you or somehow makes you complicit, right? And I understand why this letter is signed, and I understand what they're attempting to do. They're attempting to kind of reunify things and kind of create a center ground, right? Because things have become quite polarized. And so I think it's an honest thing that they're doing. I think it's an honorable thing that they're doing. I think everyone would like to, well, not everyone, obviously, but certainly large groups of people would like to live in a society where it's acceptable for people who have differing opinions to sit down and have a discussion with one another without the discussion itself being dismissed and the parties being pilloried for even engaging in the discussion with one another, which I think happens so often in our society, that should be acceptable. Now, as I think about that, like, that's a nice idea, and I think that there's something to that, but I think unfortunately, there is a limit. There is a limit to this idea that, oh, well, we can resolve all of our problems with debate, conversation, right? That we can educate, that we can teach or learn from one another, which I think is all very true, but there is a limit to it. And I don't hear anybody talking about this. And that limit, like, a fascist doesn't actually care what your opinion is, right? The only reason he's going to engage in any kind of conversation is to stall and frustrate any kind of endeavor to progress forward while they push forward their genocidal agenda, right? That's what fascism is. It's at its core, it's this exclusionary idea, this white supremacist idea that we are the superior race, that there's a superior race theory baked into this idea. And you can't just debate that away, right? Like, there's no, you're not going to reason with somebody who believes we should round up the Jews, like that's not serious. And should they attain power, you're not going to reason them away as they drag your friends off into gas chambers. That's not something that is a legitimate position to take, and something that I think should be taken very seriously. And what I think is not being taken very seriously as we are discussing these things is that these things are happening, right? Like, ICE is an organization that goes into people's homes, kidnaps them, and puts them into concentration camps. This is something that occurs throughout America. Right here in Canada, we are sending police officers, RCMP officers, onto unceded First Nations land. We are spraying people with water hoses in order to illegally build a pipeline across their land, right? Like, this is something that our governments are doing, and you can't debate or reason with people who are engaging in this, right? They have made their decisions, and all you can do is fight back against them. And the fascists, of course, have this real strategy in order to prevent that if you fight back, right, they accuse you of being somehow diminished, that you are in fact the evil one, right? This is a form of gaslighting that they do, because they are willing to stand up and say, no, well, we're a superior race and we should be able to kill and murder who we want. But if you try and kill and murder us, then you're the bad guys. Karl Polanyi attempted to shine a light on this by talking about the paradox of tolerance, is what he called it. And the idea is that we should be tolerant of everything except intolerance, and that's a paradox. But I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think it is a paradox. I think that if we live in a civil society, to live amongst one another, we create a series of social agreements. And one of those social agreements is we don't murder each other, right? That's a very clear social agreement that we have with one another. And if you break that social agreement, or if you say that social agreement shouldn't exist for a small group of people, then we're going to say, oh, okay, so you believe that a group should be exempt from this social contract and this social agreement that we have. And then, so we accept that and we apply that logic onto the person who is not abiding by the social agreement, which is the fascist, right? And so when people stand up and say we should punch Nazis, or we should arrest Nazis, right? That Nazism is not free speech, this sort of thing. All we're doing is abiding by their own logic, right? That they choose to murder people, they choose to silence people. And so, fine, we'll play by those rules, right? Those are the rules you want to play by. We were hoping that you would play by these rules where people are protected universally, and we would go through a legal system in order to resolve our conflicts. But if you're going to pick up weapons and kidnap people based on, their race or their creed or any of this kind of stuff, fine. We'll fight back on that, right? On those principles, which are your principles. And I don't think that's a paradox, right? That if somebody's willing to break the social contract and break the laws that exist in our land, we have every right, right? They're essentially turning themselves into outlaws, is really what it is. Like, if you're a fascist, you're a philosophical outlaw, right? You say that there's a type of person who should be hunted. Okay, so do I. They're called fascists. I think that's completely consistent. I think there's complete logical consistency there, and it's not a paradox at all. And so I understand why this Harper letter got written, because things have become so polarized, because things are so on because we have a rising fascism in our countries that we need to be talking about, and we need to be discussing, and we need to be taking seriously. That to me is the most dangerous thing. And my hope is that we become more open about it and more honest about it, that there is this rising fascism in our countries, that here in Canada, the Conservative Party has steadily become more and more fascist and is allowing clear fascists into their ranks. People who are obviously and overtly espousing fascist ideologies, and they're completely fine with allowing them to exist. I'm talking about people like Derek Sloan, who's running for the leadership of the Conservative Party currently. And why that's so dangerous is he'll lose this election, but he's young. He'll be there for the next one. And in 4 years' time, that party is going to just get more and more hysterical and more dedicated to their fascist principles. And I'm deeply concerned that someone like Derek Sloan in 4 years' time could take that party over. And that sort of a weak-willed, cowardly group like the Liberals will do as Liberals have always done historically, which is bend the knee to fascism, which is actually how fascists seize power. Fascists are usually the minority in their countries, right? They never win elections through majority rule. They never are elected through majority principles. They manage to seize power because the Liberals in the countries bend the knee to the fascists. And the people on the left are gulled and are gullible into believing that they can sway the opinion of these cowardly liberals who are bending the knee and the over-the-top fascists who want to actually round people up. And these gullible people on the left believe that they can do this through pacifism and debate. That's not real. Nope, that's not real at all. That's why I'm happy here in Canada, at the very least, that the most egregious ideologies of fascism get you jail time, right? That's not considered free speech. That if you stand up and say, hey, we should murder people based on their race, you go to jail. So that's a small shred, right? And soon the efficacy of that kind of idea is going to be tested at high levels of government as the Conservatives become more and more hysterical in their ideological beliefs, and their leanings toward fascism become not so much leaning as standing on the pillars of fascism. And so ultimately, I think the Harper magazine was much ado about nothing, right? Like, yeah, we should be able to have open debate and have disagreements with one another and not have it be so ideologically heightened. But we can't allow people who are saying we should round up people and murder them into the debate at all, right? And I think that that's what's being missed in all of this. That's not rational debate. Fascism is not rational debate. Fascism should get you jail time. You should go to prison if you are a fascist, right? If you have one of these Nazi swastika tattoos etched into your skin, we should burn it off as punishment, right? It's not acceptable, and we shouldn't accept it. It's not free speech. It's hate speech. You're incentivizing violence, and we shouldn't tolerate it. And I hope that gets into the discussion, that even the act of speaking about fascism in support of fascist ideas should be enough to have you imprisoned. And I have no problem saying that. I don't think that that's a clampdown on anyone's free speech. That's abiding by, that's accepting that, that's doing to fascists as they would do to us, is what it is. That's accepting the principles of fascism and saying, oh, okay, then it should be good enough for the fascists, and enacting it on the fascists. And I don't think that there's a problem with that at all. The other thing that's happening, and this one will be easier, there's not much to say, honestly. Well, that's not true. You guys know me, I could talk. Have you noticed? I can talk. Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders come forward with their policy group, right? They had their think tank, and they're like, here's our ideas, and it's a pile of nothing. It's just junk. It's absolutely meaningless. And what's scary to me about that, like, Joe Biden is likely going to win this presidency, which I actually think is bad. I think a Joe Biden presidency is worse for America than a Donald Trump, second term Donald Trump. Because a Joe Biden presidency could convince gullible neoliberal idiots who are completely complicit with fascists, who work lockstep with them and bend the knee at every chance they can. It can convince this group of gullible morons, oh yeah, things are going to improve now. Oh, things are better now with Uncle Joe. No. That's exactly what happened with Obama. We all went along, we got caught up in the Obama hype train because of the racial issues, which were important and are important in America. But Obama was a corporatist. Obama was a neoliberal, right? A self-proclaimed moderate Republican, right? Like, he's a moderate conservative. Like, he's not a leftist by any chance. He's not a progressive. He's not interested in any of these ideas. His healthcare plan was Mitt Romney's healthcare plan, right? Like, which continued to empower private industry, private healthcare companies, which don't care about you and will abandon you the second they possibly can. And so a term of Joe Biden, right? People are going to just, like gullible rubes, just convince themselves, oh, well, things have to be better now. We have Joe Biden. Not realizing that Joe Biden works for the same people Donald Trump works for, right? He's going to appoint the same people into his cabinet. He's going to the same type of people. He's going to do the same types of things. He's going to continue the wars. He's going to continue the exploitation of the working class. All of the same structural problems are going to exist under Joe Biden. And why this is so bad for America, as it fires itself back and forward between these two incredibly terrible options, is that, and you can see the chart, right? This is leading America further and further down a fascist rabbit hole. That every time the pendulum swings between the Republicans and the Democrats, it swings farther and farther to the right every time. It goes to the right, and then it swings to a Democrat, which lands not even a little bit to the left anymore, right? Obama wasn't a little bit to the left. And then swings farther to the right. And then when it swings back towards the Democrat, it doesn't swing a little bit farther to the left at all. And in fact, falls a little bit closer to the right. And so after the Joe Biden presidency, the disaster that it definitely will be and continue to be for America, Americans will turn to the Republican Party. Well, they're going to elect a Christian fascist, is what they're going to do. Someone like Mike Pence, who genuinely believes that we should be doing a crusade across the Middle East in the name of Jesus Christ so that we can ascend to the Holy Land. Right? So I genuinely believe that a Joe Biden presidency would be absolutely worse for America than a second term of Trump. which is a disaster, don't get me wrong. But at least we're not pretending like it's anything but, right? At least we're not sitting here pretending as though a Donald Trump presidency, oh yeah, well, great sunshines and rainbows, like what's going to happen under a Joe Biden presidency. The counter to this is that if the protest continues and the strikes continue, we might actually be able to push Joe Biden, whereas we wouldn't be able to push Donald Trump. And there's something to that, perhaps. But I'm from the theater, and in the theater there's this belief that you have to expose the poison if you want to suck it out. And I believe that Joe Biden hides the poison and muddies these waters and makes it clearer and makes it harder for the American people to understand that, well, and for the Canadian people as well, to understand that the villains have taken over. And we have to continue fighting back. Anyway, guys, I'm here. Good luck out there. Keep fighting the good fight.